For Chapter 24, we're going to be looking at the home front and what was happening in the United States to prepare our soldiers for the war. And we did a lot. And how did the Americans on the home front support and oppose are the two main things we're going to be looking at. There was a lot of mobilization. Obviously, the draft occurred, and there were 2 million plus volunteers for the military to go fight over in Europe. And we also had to increase our production of fuel, ships, weapons, and food. And there were a lot of governing boards that were set up to help that out. And if you look on page 307, Woodrow Wilson set up the War Industries Board to direct industrial production for the military, as well as the Food Administration and the Fuel Administration was all about rationing. They would have meatless Mondays or gasless Sundays, just because they needed to save as much product for our soldiers to help win the war. And it might be from food to gas to water. People stopped driving their cars. The people that had cars to start walking more. Everything that you did, you made a decision. Either you're going to keep it for yourself or you're going to support your troops overseas. And a lot of people said, you know what, we're going to support our troops overseas. Victory gardens became popular as well, growing your own fruits and vegetables instead of having to buy them all. And that became even more popular during World War II. Propaganda. The United States had to sell this war. And if you flip back to page 305, there's a lot of stuff here on the CPI and how we made the Germans look like savages. And this picture on the left here of Destroy the Butte, that was basically Germany, and they're taking away Lady Liberty. And there were tons of different actors and artists and musicians and all these people that created propaganda to support the war. Also, George Creel, who was in charge of the Committee for Public Information, created these ideas of these 4-minute speeches. And they would go around and give speeches on anything to help support the war. And it says here, in cities and towns across the country, CPI officials recruited 75,000 men to make short 4-minute speeches at civic and social clubs, movie theaters, churches, farmhouses, and country stores. And they were patriotic. They addressed topics of why the United States was fighting this war, and why we needed to conserve our fuel and our industries for the support of the war. The next thing, too, is the Great Migration. There were many people that moved from the south to the north looking for jobs, especially for African Americans. There's a lot of push and pull factors. The push, what made them leave the south, and that was poverty, Jim Crow laws, lynching, terrorism, all those things inside the community that they needed to move. And the pull factor was the job opportunities for factories of the north, because Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, they all had mass industry jobs that were ideal for a lot of African Americans to find a good, well-paying job to take care of your family. And all the factors being in the north, that's where the majority of the war had its support as well. We also had to finance this thing. How are we going to pay for a war? We just can't send people overseas and not pay for it. So the income tax, 4.4 million people were paying income tax in 1918 compared to only 437 in 1917. So the income tax paid for a lot of it, as well as Liberty bonds. And this bond, which basically is a loan with interest that you would get back over time. You can still go out and buy a bond today. They're not as lucrative as they used to be, but a lot of people still buy them for people that are born or for birthdays and things like that, and you hold on to them, and they might mature to full capacity, or they might double or something like that, but they're still around today that you can buy. There was also a lot of opposition to the war. People that did not support it. Many women. Janet Rankin was the first Republican woman representative in Congress, and she said, you can no more win a war than you can win with an earthquake. Quakers and pacifists very much did not support the war. Big businesses thought it was a good idea because they turned their companies over to war factories that build stuff for the war. And there was a lot of things like the conscientious objectors, where they were people who opposed the war for religious or moral reasons, or refused to serve in the armed forces. So there were many people that were against it, some people that were for it, but even with the war today, the war that we fought in Iraq, there were many people that thought it was a great idea to go fight this war, and other people that thought, why are we even bothering dealing with a country that had nothing to do with 9/11? So there's two different sides of everything, and some people were supported and others were not. And then last thing is the Espionage Act of 1917, and this was a crime to interfere with the draft, and it was a crime to also obstruct with a war effort. And the Sedition Act of 1918, this would restrict your freedom of speech. Anything disloyal, profane, or abusive, anything against the government was against the law. And there were other restrictions on speech and action, but there were 2,000 prosecutions for that, and there was a lot of public persecution of Germans that were living in America because they had strong cultural ties to people that were fighting the war in Germany. So that's your vodcast for Wednesday night over chapter 23. I'll see you guys tomorrow in class. Also, make sure you fill out the questions tonight on Moodle for chapter 24. Have a good night.